Chào mừng quý vị đã đến với câu chuyện kinh doanh trên FBNC. Thưa quý vị, chương trình hôm nay sẽ là cuộc trao đổi về chủ đề quỹ mở, một phương thức đầu tư hiệu quả tại Việt Nam. Và khách mời đến với cuộc trò chuyện ngày hôm nay xin được giới thiệu đến quý vị ông Avinash Satwaleka là Tổng Giám đốc và kiêm Giám đốc đầu tư của quỹ VCBF. Trước khi đến với phần trao đổi với khách mời quý vị theo dõi một đoạn clip ngắn sau đây.
Nếu như vào thời điểm đầu năm, nhiều nhà quản lý quỹ vẫn còn tỏ ra khá e ngại với triển vọng của quỹ mở, thì cho đến tháng 8 năm nay, thị trường khá bất ngờ với thông tin đã có 15 quỹ mở đang hoạt động. Trong đó chỉ riêng tháng 8 đã có đến 3 quỹ mở mới gia nhập thị trường. Quỹ mở là một hình thức quỹ mà các nhà đầu tư góp vốn cho một mục đích đầu tư chung trong một khoảng thời gian không giới hạn. Thị trường tài chính sau mấy năm lao đao đã sàng lọc dần các nhà đầu tư và sẽ rất khó cho những ai muốn tự đầu tư chứng khoán mà lại không hiểu biết cặn kẽ về lĩnh vực này. Do đó, sự ra đời của các quỹ mở có thể đáp ứng nhu cầu của những nhà đầu tư vừa muốn tham gia loại hình đầu tư có tiềm năng lợi nhuận cao nhưng không am hiểu tài chính và cũng không có nhiều thời gian theo dõi thị trường. Dù thực tế chưa ai có thể vẽ ra bức tranh rõ nét hơn cho tương lai của quỹ mở tại Việt Nam, nhưng thực tế, quỹ mở đã và đang là xu hướng phổ biến, chiếm 80% tổng số các quỹ đầu tư đang hoạt động trên thế giới hiện nay. Và điều đáng chú ý là quỹ mở đang có tiềm năng rất lớn tại Việt Nam, nơi mà có đến hơn 90% số nhà đầu tư là cá nhân nhỏ lẻ.
Hi Avinash. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Okay, today we will talk about open-ended fund. So first of all, just go over the definition of what is an open-ended fund.
Sure. An open-ended fund, as the word suggests, is open as opposed to closed. And what that means is an investor can come into the fund and invest in the fund at any time and can exit or redeem from the fund at any time. Mm-hmm. This is different from a closed-end fund wherein you have one opportunity to come into the fund and then you have to wait till the entire life of the fund before you can redeem your shares.
Up to date, total so far we have 15 open-ended funds. So are you surprised of the fast development of the market?
You know, we're not surprised by the development of the market in Vietnam. Vietnam has a very young population and 90 million people, and you've got 13 million households that have a monthly income greater than 20 million dong per month. That is a pretty healthy sized market, and all these families are looking for ways to increase their wealth. And the traditional sources of wealth creation are starting to kind of slow down or not provide the returns that they were previously getting. So I'm very, very certain that you're going to continue to see an increase in the number of funds that are going to be launched in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. Well, for Vietnam, it's a very small market. And so far we have 15 of them. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be so hard for you guys to compete with others?
I'm not really concerned about competition, partly because I think competition is good for the customer. Mm-hmm. It brings out the best in any industry.
Right.
I mean, the more competition you have, the better products you have. The better products you have, the more beneficial it is for the customers. Mm-hmm. As far as it goes for VCBF, we're less concerned about it because when we've got support from two very, very strong parents, so if you look at Franklin Templeton, which is a global asset manager based in the US, right. We've got a tremendous amount of experience from Franklin Templeton. Franklin Templeton's been in the investment business for over 65 years and is a global manager. So we have access to all that research and experience. And then when you marry that with a trusted name like Vietcom Bank, you have a combination that is very, very strong.
Right.
I mean, I'll go back and say Franklin Templeton has over 550 investment professionals all over the globe. And our team in Vietnam has the ability to tap into that knowledge base. Mm-hmm. So the advantage is pretty strong for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the last 8 months of this year, VN Index has increased like 25%. And now you have a new product coming out. Mm-hmm. Is it difficult for you to attract investors?
I think the fact that the VN Index has gone up is more a recognition that Vietnam had been forgotten by a lot of investors.
Right.
And so I think that is coming back. But if you look at the long term, which is what we do as investors,
Right.
I'm extremely bullish about the long-term prospects of Vietnam. If you look at, I mentioned earlier, the demographics or the population, 90 million, over 60% of them are under the age of 30.
Right.
But if you look at it even on the economy itself of Vietnam, I mean, GDP growth has stabilized, which is, some argue it's not such a good thing because we're not seeing growth. My point is that if you look around, there aren't that many countries that are growing that fast. And Vietnam has got 5.5% GDP growth, which is, yes, compared to the previous 7.5+%,
Right.
it looks low. But 5.5% is still very, very strong. So I think that is different. Then you look at interest rates, they've come down significantly. So as that goes down, you are more of a tendency to invest or start to buy. And then finally, I think valuations are very cheap compared to anywhere else in the region. So when I look at the growth prospects and you look at valuation, longer term, I think Vietnam is in a very, very strong position.
Well, you have a new product, so your strategy is to attract individual or institutional investors.
It's open to both, but the two products that we have, two funds that we have, they are targeted primarily for individual investors. And it's a mechanism to allow them to start building their wealth and start to save.
Okay, look at the outlook of the market for the next 5 years. What is your expectation on it?
When we're looking at the open-ended fund industry itself in total, currently Vietnam has a total assets under management in the industry of between 90 and 95 million US dollars. If, for example, if you look at China as an example, China opened up their open-ended fund industry in 1999. And within 5 years, open-ended funds were the largest individual investment vehicle in China. And by 2011, the total assets in the industry were 450 billion US dollars. And that accounted for approximately 5.8% of their GDP at the time. Now, the story is pretty similar across Asia. I mean, if you look at, on average, the open-ended fund industry or mutual fund industry accounts for 9% of GDP. Now, if we look deeper in, let's say, Southeast Asia, if you look at, let's say, Indonesia and the Philippines, which are the smaller markets, even there, the size of the market is about 2.5% of GDP. So if we are to assume that we have somewhere between 2.5% of GDP and 9% of GDP for Vietnam, you're talking about a size of the market of anywhere from 4 to 12 billion.
Wow.
Now, well, our expectation, since you asked about the next 5 years, right? My sense is that within the next 5 years, we'll be somewhere in the range of 4 to 5 billion in terms of total assets for the industry.
Well, that's the first part of our talk today. In the second part, we will talk about your financial advisory. Vừa rồi là phần 1 của câu chuyện kinh doanh. Chúng tôi sẽ quay trở lại sau ít phút nữa với phần 2.